Hello everyone, I am Jorge Trujillo and this time I will talk about a very interesting topic, SVG in HTML. Okay, to start we should know what is SVG. SVG is a file extension for a vector graphics image. This file format was created by the W3C to describe such images by mathematical equation. SVG uses XML, Extensible Markup Language. Now, why we must use SVG and what advantages are gained by it? To understand this, we must note that the majority images like JPG, GIF, BMP, PNG, etc. are images based on bitmap. The problem with this type of images is they are not scalable. That is, they have an optimum display size, and if the size in which they are displayed is smaller or larger than the image's own size, they suffer a pixelated effect, which make it impractical to use a same bitmap image to make a miniature or scale it to appear larger than it really is. In contrast, the SVG format is not formatted by a bitmap, but by coordinates of points joined together by straight lines. This feature makes the vector images can be scaled until infinity without losing detail or pixelization. In addition, they are usually faster loading than bitmap images because they are numerical data that are downloaded very fast in the browser. Okay, in these slides we have two SVG images. Now, if I increase the size of the images, they don't have any distortion. You can see that. However, the next slide has two images also, but they are a JPEG and GIF. We can see that if I do the same thing, these images are distorted. Now, how do we use these types of images in HTML? Well, there are several ways to do it. SVG can be embedded like any other type of image into an image type tag inside a web page. In the source property of the image tag, we only have to put the path of the SVG image that we want to use, and it will display without problems in any modern browser, as long as the web page used is an HTML5 page. This system, although is the simplest, has its disadvantage. Using this system is more difficult to access the SVG properties of the image. SVG has its own document object model, DOM, that can be used to modify this type of images with JavaScript. But embedding the SVG in an image tag is more difficult to access this DOM. Therefore, we can use this system for images of type SVG that are going to be static within our web page. That is, they will not undergo any subsequent transformation directly on that SVG object. Another way is by embed tag. With HTML5, the tag embed object is finally standardized, which in the HTML4 version was not a standard. This tag allows us to insert various types of document into a web page. This can be used to insert an SVG document into it, but doing so has the same limitation as doing it through an image tag. That is, we will not be able to access in principle the SVG object that is embedded in the embed. As in the image tag, we can access the source property of embed and from there go loading various SVG creating an animation. But we will not be able to access the document object model of the SVG object. Another way is the SVG embedded in document. We have seen several ways to insert an SVG document into an HTML5 page by helper tags. But HTML5 allows the insertion of an XML document, and SVG is an XML document, into the page itself directly. This option may seem appropriate, but in fact has a rather large drawback. If you insert an XML document directly into a web page, we are not separating the various presentation layers. There is a way to design web page that can be considered more optimal. This form of design, what it does is try to separate contents, presentation and the logic of the page, which is treated as if it were an application. However, if we insert an SVG document directly into the web page, we will no longer have trouble accessing the DOM of the SVG object because the SVG document becomes part of the DOM of the page itself. We will access the SVG object as you access any type of element on a web page through the getElementByLD method and similar existing methods. Once we access the element, we can use the methods, properties, etc. of SVG. Finally, we can insert SVG documents using JavaScript. Through the DOM, we can generate any type of element in a web page. Documents of type SVG are something special because they are in fact XML and must be treated with methods focused to the XML. Therefore, we will use some substitutions methods of the traditional createElement or setAttributes. In substitutions, we will use createElementsSN or setAttributesSN. They are methods necessary to get a visible SVG to be generated in all browsers. Here is an example of creating an SVG document by JavaScript. Okay, the most important thing is that we can't edit the attributes of our image, because we can change the values, and in this way we will be able to manage the images into our web page. And then this is the image that the last example that I presented for you. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope that this presentation helped you to understand better this topic.